I want to take a moment to let you know that I do have a Patreon. You can be a $3 a month, $5 or $10 a month member. $5 and $10 members get all my videos without ads and an audio version if you like to listen while you're multitasking, working, or whatever. $10 members actually get a free copy of my first book, Rational Answers to Stupid Questions. Link is in the description. Enjoy the video. Well, since you said please, then I'll allow it.
Wait, before I give the argument, what's the distinction between analytic and synthetic truths? Go ahead.
I don't know.
You don't know. So you don't know this basic distinction between different types of facts.
Man, are you that
So
guy that came
how
up
are
here
we
that one time
expected to
and said,
understand
no.
implication of the argument?
Anyways, are you that guy that came up here that one time and said, hey, what's the, how did it go? I used to have it memorized.
So you just concede that you don't know basic logical distinctions, Tubby? Yes or no?
I don't know what you mean by those terms. I could probably sit around and think about
That's
it.
what I thought, Plumpy.
I know
So you don't know
analytic.
this basic distinction between
I know
these
that analytical
entry-level
truths are
logical
true by
concepts.
definition.
Yeah, now he's just Googling the answer, Chad. He looks terrible. You guys support this guy? Look at him.
No,
He's
no,
tough.
no, no. I'm looking up that
Look at him, look at
thumbnail
him.
because I'm
He's
looking
actually
for that
face down, ass
thumbnail.
up right now, and the argument hasn't even been rendered yet. He looks terrible optically and
What was
rhetorically.
it?
He's getting his back blown out.
Atemporal
literally choking
unconditional
on my rhetorical
precondition that
diagram.
is necessarily non-contingent. Are you
Non-contingent,
that?
universally
Oh, you're
ultimate
that
grounds
guy.
and instantiates all synthetic predicates. So go ahead and respond to the argument, fat boy. Which premise do you reject, Tubby?
You haven't given a premise.
Sorry, I did just give a premise. Can you repeat what I just said?
You didn't give a premise. You just
Sorry, you're not capable of
you
repeating
rattled
what I
off
just said.
a
That's
bunch
gonna be
of like
concession.
descriptions.
Blunder number two on your end, Tubby. I need you to repeat everything I just said because I gave you a premise, the first premise of my argument, which follows via modus tollens.
Modus tollens.
Yes,
If
sir.
P
You know
then
logical
Q, not Q, therefore not P. You didn't do that.
Sorry, sir. Just to be very clear about this, I gave you the first premise of my argument was a conditional statement. Can you repeat everything I just said?
Well, I said atemporal unconditional precondition that is necessarily non-contingent, and then I don't remember what you said after that.
Yeah, so you're just not tracking. That's a tracking error on your part.
On my fart? You mean part? He said fart. Like he literally said fart. We can't hear you when you're not on the app. YouTube, you guys can't see this, but here I can see that coffee cup thing, YouTubers. That means that they're there, but they don't have the app open, so you can't hear anything that, oh, he dropped. Well, okay. So he just conceded the entire debate, and you all saw it. Okay.
People while also holding determinism.
Oh, well, that was a joke. When I say when I say humans are terrible people, that's very tongue in cheek, but it is true that like there is a innate human nature that because we live in extremely large complex societies is unquestionably holding us back, right? Like the root of racism is the innate tribalism that we all have. I'm not going to sit here and make excuses and say that colonization was like good or that the ends justify the means or something like that. But so I can fully agree with the abuses and horrors of colonization, but people pretend that like the white European was this uniquely evil entity, whereas the Maori people committed an unthinkably disgusting genocide against, I can't remember what the other tribe in, it's in New Zealand. I can't remember what they're called. But that kind of thing happened all the time because any two groups of people that are neighbors that look the same are capable of looking at each other like the enemy and dehumanizing them and doing the worst kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I think that living again, I don't necessarily disagree with you, and I know you're looking for opposition, but um, I think that sort of the natural globalization that occurs as a result of like the connectivity that the internet has brought in the last 20 to 30 years, I think naturally creates a more collectivist culture on a global scale. And I think, the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because I do think that these are our what you're describing is our human nature, but I do think that there's lots of things in nature that used to be our nature, but we can grow beyond um, or
Yeah,
evolve
I
beyond
think
what it is our nature.
that the human race collectively is, or the human species, whatever, same difference, is collectively has a conscious that expands its moral circle more and more. And I do think we are better today than really we ever were. And I mean, that is something that I consider myself a leftist, but that is something that, chronically online leftist cultural warriors or whatever really will not accept. And I just think that they should read maybe one history book, and then you could try to understand the true nature of human nature, which is dark. And people pretend that it's that the modern world created it, or that certain groups uniquely are just uniquely evil or whatever. It's like, no, I mean, Genghis Khan was just as bad as Christopher Columbus was just as bad as Schmittler, maybe not quite,
Yeah, at
but
a
there's
certain
no
point, it's like
the difference between like a Genghis Khan and a Schmittler is less than the difference between myself and him. People, humans are terrible people, and it's only thanks to kind of the stuff you were talking about, but obviously a lot more than that, that we can rescue ourselves and save ourselves from our most terrible instincts. And a complex society and education is necessary for that, because a phrase I like to say a lot is things can only control you as long as you remain ignorant about them. And yeah, I think it's no coincidence that more egalitarian societies are ones that are more pluralistic and diverse and sort of dense, like population wise as well.
Yeah, I like that. Things can only control you if you're ignorant about them.
Yeah.
I like that because my first instinct is to say, oh well, I know lots of things about myself, but that doesn't mean I'm a perfect human. Like, I know just because I know I do something wrong doesn't mean I can always change it. But then at the same time, it's like, well, if I know that I'm doing something wrong, if I have the knowledge of it, then it's really myself that's holding me back by not changing it. It's not the thing that is controlling me. I don't know. I
Yeah.
could go on a whole rant, but yeah, it looks like I don't really disagree with you. But keep up the good lives, and I'll drop down.
Sounds good. Thanks for coming around.
Tuning argument, the hard problem of consciousness, I think are pretty solid arguments towards a creator. What would you say against that?
I think those are just terrible arguments. The hard problem of consciousness, where does God even enter the equation for that? Like, we don't know what consciousness is, therefore God? Or we don't know how naturalism could produce consciousness, therefore it must have been from supernaturalism, i.e. God?
No, it's not that. It's more from a naturalist sort of, how do I explain it? Like, from a Newtonian cause and effect paradigm, I think consciousness is quite hard to explain. It's, from a bunch of inanimate particles being able to create a subjective conscious experience is quite hard to explain from a naturalist paradigm.
I kind of agree and disagree. I more so strongly disagree, actually. I think we know with an extreme degree of confidence that and how our subjective experience is caused through our physical brain and body. I don't think that's in question at all. And we know specifically how it can be manipulated and what kinds of damages to what regions can cause XYZ expected symptoms or results. Talking about brain damage or a stroke in a particular region. The stuff about split brain patients just absolutely dismantles. That's kind of more of a free will thing, but what it does is it very well illustrates that the subjective experience within us isn't something that you have the degree of control over that you think it does. Now, what is consciousness? Is consciousness physical? Is it made of material? What is the substance of a thought? That we don't know. But I think I don't see any problem in sort of asserting, maintaining whatever, that the subjective experience we have can be explained bottom up.
Yeah.
From the mere physical too.
I understand that. But it's more the fact that inanimate particles can give rise to a subjective experience. I think, and this is the fence that I sit on, you have to concede that that's at least curious from a point of a naturalistic cause and effect position.
It's very mysterious. I would admit that. I don't have a problem admitting that. And it kind of seems to also, it seems like it may be a kind of problem that is fundamentally not solvable. Like, what is the substance of a thought? Kind of like, was there something before this universe existed, or is there something other than this universe that exists? I think that that's just fundamentally not knowable, unfortunately. But what we don't know, the problem with this kind of argument from ignorance is we say we don't know. And then to insert God in there is just betraying what you just said, which is we don't know. What people do is
God of the gaps.
Yeah, in a particular kind of way, people pretend that the people, like, we don't know, but it's like a puzzle piece. We have no idea, but people pretend like they know the shape of that puzzle piece, and they know what shape God as a puzzle piece is, and so it fits there. And it's like, no, we have no freaking idea what this God is like in any kind of way, and we don't know. First of all, we don't know that this won't just be solved later by some sort of naturalistic explanation.
That's
but
true.
we certainly don't. We don't know what shape a supernatural puzzle piece even is, or what piece, or what shape a God piece even is. So I just find that to all be, it's not compelling in any sort of way to me. It's just God of the gaps, and then I have a video about fine-tuning on my YouTube channel where I go over like 6, 7, 8 different specific problems with it. I mean, I'm happy to go over some of them if you want to, but I think fine-tuning might be the best argument because it's really hard. A layperson has no idea what to think or say in response to it, but it's the kind of thing where even somebody like me can understand that it's very weak, and so I still think it's a terrible argument.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that it has its rebuttals. I think fine-tuning for me was the most solid argument, purely because I think there is some... I want to
interrupt you, because there are a lot of angles to fine-tuning, which is why there are so many rebuttals to it. So what like angle or what thing that fine-tuning accounts for do you think that makes it compelling?
Well, it's more that there's physical constants of the universe, for example, the gravitational constant or the strong and weak nuclear force, that if they were a fraction different then the universe, stars, for example, wouldn't have been able to be formed, therefore life wouldn't be able to be formed. And I understand, by the way, as Christopher Hitchens said, you look around, the universe clearly isn't finely tuned for life. You know, eventually the sun is going to get so big that it will destroy Earth, and you know, so where's the fine tuning in that we're all going to get destroyed and it's some cosmic fucking apocalypse? But yeah, I understand. And by the way, sorry, this is why I say I'm offensive,
the
because
argument
his
typically
argument's fine,
goes, it's not that the universe is finely tuned for life and therefore life should be ubiquitous and everywhere. What they'll typically say is the universe is finely tuned to allow for sentient intelligent life to exist, and that cries out for an explanation. But so there are multiple problems with that. First of all, if we can imagine that a universe without God can exist, then a universe where God doesn't exist and there are conscious creatures making observations, they can only conclude that the universe is tuned for them to be making observations. Yeah. That's just the anthropic principle. So it's a puddle thinking that it's a miracle that the pothole is shaped like it. It can only be shaped like that. Yeah, that's one problem. Another serious problem with this is, while it's true that if you change, well, what we've actually found out is some of the constants appear to be finely tuned, but Sean Carroll talks about this, and I don't remember how he puts it, but originally there was this sort of backhand calculation that was done that said a particular constant was finely tuned to an extraordinary degree. But then what he found out was actually when you take a look at this constant, he said that the math turns out to be the number you get is 1. And it was sort of like it's actually inevitable that constant has that value. So it doesn't cry out for a special explanation for that value to have what it does. It just manifests that way. And I don't know if that's because of its interaction with other constants or what. Like I said, I don't remember for that one.
So the reality is that there are physical constants of the universe that if they were tweaked in a different way, the things that we know to be today wouldn't have been allowed to exist if they were tweaked any certain way.
Yeah, so there's two different angles for fine-tuning with respect to that. You can either say they're finely tuned for intelligent life, or they're finely tuned to allow complex matter to exist. And there's two different things there. So it's whether or not, because one of those implications can give you an argument that therefore there's a God that wants to have a personal relationship with sentient beings. The other one is to allow the universe to kind of exist at all, because, if some of those constants were any different, the universe would just collapse in on itself and no complex materials would exist or whatever. And in both of those cases, you're just assuming the mind of God. If God is perfect, then a universe that can only be made of fundamental particles that can never coalesce to form complex matter would be what that God wants by definition, because the God is perfect. So it's
that's my I don't believe in a perfect God. I think I've through basically a process of elimination, I've come to the conclusion that God exists, but he cannot be omnibenevolent or omnipotent.
Sure.
Because you look around and you see that this cannot be works of an omnibenevolent God. And if he's omnibenevolent, then he can't be omnipotent. The problem of suffering, so on and so forth. But I think there is, for example, DNA, genetics, why something rather than nothing in itself, I think is a pretty solid argument for the existence of a creator. I think people just, science-orientated naturalist people are quite... they don't like the idea of a creator, but I just don't think it's... I think when you look at the nature of just existence, consciousness, us being, I think it shouldn't be so fringe, so outlandish to say that maybe this is just a, not say like simulation, maybe it could be, but maybe this is just I don't know how to say it. How would you say it?
I don't know what you're talking about. How would I say what?
No, I'm saying I don't know what I'm talking about, brother. I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's fine. there was more stuff about fine tuning I was going to talk about, but well, I'm just going to go back to that because I don't know what else to say either. But those constants, one of the problems with that is the way that's couched to us is if any one of the constants was slightly different, things would collapse. Well, sure, but we don't know all the different permutations of the constants where they could all vary and things would a universe that looks like ours could still exist. We don't know what that is at all.
We don't have to have a different universe to know that if there's certain variables for a constant, that if it could be any other way.
So this gives us multiverse, which seems kind of like a cop-out answer. But multiverse is not a response to theistic arguments. Multiverse was born out of looking at the math equations and understanding that a multiverse might happen. And there's this concept of bubble universes where multiverse doesn't mean a bunch of parallel universes. It means beyond our visible horizon for the visible universe. If I teleported you to so many light years away where you're outside of the observable universe here, you could be in a pocket of the universe where the constants are different. There's literally no problem with that. And if the universe is infinite, which it appears to be, then there's absolutely no problem with fine-tuning whatsoever. So it just naturalistically does away with the necessity for a god to have created everything.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't really have a rebuttal to that.
The thing about simulation, because, you could just say, I used to do this. I used to say, look, any argument for like the universe having the properties that it does and that screaming for God as an explanation, I always said that I think that is a better argument for simulation theory over God, because we at least know that simulations exist. We make very unsophisticated, weak simulations all the time. Oh, he's gone. I don't know what happened. But we make very weak simulations all the time. And I don't need to invoke a suspension or a violation of the laws of physics for that to be an explanation. And then Dr. Blitz absolutely ruined my life because he created a video where he went over a paper that apparently somebody went over the computational power it would take to simulate a universe. Even at low resolutions and even with a quantum computer, you need something like multiple black holes. What was it? Black holes? I want to say he said black holes, but that doesn't really make any sense to me. But it was like you would need to consume the energy output of multiple stars to do even the crappiest simulation. So simulation theory has effectively, it looks like, been scientifically demonstrated to be, at least for the universe we have, the computational power required for it completely breaks the laws of physics. So it's out. And that pisses me off so much because now I can't use that argument.